What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today's video is a clip from The Line. If you want to catch me on The Line, I'm on there once a month to host Skept Talk. The Line also has a number of other shows that you might be interested in. So after you watch this clip today, why don't you go on over there, subscribe, and be sure to catch the next show. We do have John that called back in. He's the theist from New York. Hey there, John. How you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello?
Yay. We can hear you.
All right. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I understand there's a lag. Okay. So as I was saying before, now in continuance, I wanted to make a rational case for God. Keep in mind, this argument is an argument in process. I keep saying it. In progress, so it's not complete. And I'm sure upon careful analysis and examination, you can find or discover or see many holes in it. But I'm giving it an attempt to see where it stands so far. Am I taking you guys as both atheists or agnostic?
Yes.
I believe we're both atheists. Definitely.
Okay. Okay. As a qualifier, so I have a really strict audience to analyze my argument, to rate the level of my argument. But I was speaking before about physics and about how physics essentially requires a mind to create that physics. And I'm going to give an argument to this in a second. I'm trying to flesh out this argument and see if it's convincing at the very least, if not definitely proven at the very most. But that physics is a system. It's a rational system of governing material objects in the physical world. So as we know, as we've seen with human systems, such as this society we're in America, or any place of governance, any polity, P-O-L-I-T-Y, polity, or any sovereign nation, or nation period, there must be a system to govern the constituting elements of that society or that place. And these places come to be systems, and these systems we know are rationally created by minds in order to efficiently govern, because there's a need for governance for obvious reasons. I don't think I have to make a rational argument for why governance is necessary when we're dealing with a complex system such as a human society. Very clearly, that system is a system needs to govern the basic elements of that system. So physics. I would say a mind is necessary for a physics because, first of all, so a definition of physics would be a system of rational, I don't say calculation, let's just say a rational scientific epistemic basis that governs, again, the dynamics and workings of physical objects. So that's a very loose definition. That's not official physics definition.
Hold on. Hey, so hold on. I hate to interrupt you in the middle of your argument here, but again, just for me personally, any argument from physics or math is just gonna fall flat for me. And so you say that physics is governed by God. You need a mind, a sentient mind, in order to manage a complex system. Like we have human managed complex systems. The universe is a complex system, therefore it requires a mind. Am I encapsulating kind of what this first part of your argument is?
For the most part, yes. I admit I haven't given a proof of why that's the case. Because it can be argued that.
Okay, I understand that. So I understand that. Let me finish my thought here. So, for one thing, it's a false analogy fallacy here, because you're not actually you can't compare human designed systems to natural systems and how they work. I'll give you a good for instance. The gravity, like the theory of gravity, the law of gravity, all of that. Gravity is created when mass displaces space-time, and it creates sort of like this dip in space-time. That's the effect that matter has on space-time. And so gravity is this fictitious force that is created by this displacement of space-time. And so using this as an understanding, can you please point out the magic that comes into play with gravity? Like, because that's what I hear you making the case for, is that, well, this physics in general requires magic in order to operate. And I'm using magic to refer to any force outside of the universe that would suspend the normal operation of reality in order to operate, which I feel like is what you would have to believe in if God is responsible for natural things to occur. You would need some kind of force to make things operate in a certain way in reality. So with our understanding of gravity, which I know is a very surface level, probably a really bad explanation of basic gravity, but where is the magic in that? Or we could go to something simpler if you wanted to, like the rain. I don't see any kind of need for God in the rain cycle. We used to think God was needed for the rain cycle, but that's when we would all get naked and dance around and then hope that it rained later. But we don't need God for that. We don't need God for rain to happen. We don't need God for gravity to be felt, you know? So where is God in those particular natural systems?
Okay, I understand. I would address that in a second if I can. Question, what's the fallacy you said I made? Because I'm studying these fallacies, so please, what's the name of it so I can research it further?
I believe it's a false analogy fallacy. You're trying to compare two things that are different. They're too different to be compared in the way that you're trying to compare them. Yes,
and I would agree that you definitely called me out correctly in me. That I would agree that would be a false analogy fallacy, but I was trying to use that as a segue to say, okay, so first about magic, okay. So I understand your understanding of God to mean someone who just mystically, as you put it, magically, for lack of a better word, just sort of affects natural systems and therefore it's something that's beyond scientific or even philosophical explanation. It's something that, you know, a lot of theists, and perhaps you think I'm doing so as well, it's just positing as to say, oh, you know, because these things are complex, therefore they require a being just to somehow, unbeknownst, inexplicably, and therefore you can substitute that to say, or equivalently to say magically affect this thing. I'm not positing that statement or hypothesis, for lack of a better word. I'm saying, okay, so first of all, okay, what I mean by a God is necessary is, at least according to my calculations, is that ultimately when we see a system such as physics, it's governed by very simple laws. So there's certain properties of mind, I guess, I don't want to go back to the philosophy of mind, but there's certain properties of mind that we know that when we see these things, it's highly likely or definitive that a mind has to be present and operative in order to create these things. For example, I know this is putting me in a very slippery slope. I'm aware of Paley's watchmaker argument of how when you see complex things, you know, people can say a God created it, and that's a fallacy, definitely. But what I would say is that there's certain indicative signs. For example, when something is very simple, the term wisdom, something is almost like saying the universe is wise in the sense that, okay, let's take a physics like, okay, mechanics. You take a block.
Can I say something?
Yes, please do, sure. Rebecca.
I'd like to address the physics thing. So okay. I am autistic, and physics was one of those things that I just knew the answer. Like I could just answer physics questions. I didn't even have to be taught it. Strangely, it was very odd. But because, you know, I view things in pictures. I have to translate everything through pictures. And so physics was super easy for me. But because of that, I have kind of like the ability to picture the whole of physics, right? Where we have the universe expanding and it came from this point. But I spent a lot of time focused on what is outside of our universe, right? Because were we a point in the middle of nothing? What are we expanding into? I don't have answers for those questions. And so for me, whenever I have that, and, you know, like, let's talk about the theory that it expands and contracts and expands and contracts, is it the same rules every time? Because it would be hard for me to believe that, but like I have no way of looking into it. But the idea that there could be more than one universe, and that it having other rules than the ones that we have here, and the constants being just slightly different than those here or whatever, is a question that isn't answered. And so for me, like, yes, here there are certain properties where things are related or inversely related. And, like if you go this way, then it goes that way, right? Or whatever. But I don't see how somebody had to be involved. Like there's nobody involved with my wall or whatever. You know what I mean? It's stuff, like the object is there, but I don't need to see that as somebody came up with it. That's a hard sell.
Okay, is that okay? I see what you're saying. Again, this is the main, of course, rift, if you will, the great schism between theists, atheists, and agnostics. In the sense that, okay, I'm trying to lay down the criteria that would be necessary to say intelligence was involved in something. So this I'm trying to set the axioms for this statement, and then see if you guys agree with it. I see what you're saying. It took me a while to come to the realization and the perception that indeed a mind was behind these intelligent systems, like the sciences, and even philosophy, even how we're moral creatures. And I understand morality. I don't want to create a fallacy in saying just because we're moral, therefore God exists. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying when one takes time to meditate and really cogitate on these things, one starts to perceive a mind behind it, a wisdom. And wisdom, as well as knowledge, can only come from a mind. But that's to say that knowledge is involved in the Christian universe. I'm going to get back to my point with the block, and then I'm going to just a question about someone having to be present to make the universe the way it is. Me perceiving a mind behind it to say, back to the vignette or the example with the block. The steel block, let's say, is on I don't want to say frictionless plane, but it's on a plane, like a regular floor. Like I say marble, I don't know exactly material. Let's say wooden floor, for instance. So it has a certain coefficient of friction. Like this is, physics, basic college physics or basic high school physics. It has a coefficient of friction, that works opposite in the way you would move the block. And, if you move it forward, the force friction goes backward. If you move it backward, the force friction moves forward. Due to the molecules, they don't really touch, but, scraping against each other. So be it in that way. And then there's gravity and then the normal force. So gravity works down, the normal force works up. Okay, so these simple, the ways in which this system was created, it works with very simple, rational principles. I would have to say the universe appears definitely to be rational when we study it, and it's intelligible. It can be figured out with intelligence, and the systems in which govern the objects are very simple rules that appear, that work together in such a harmony that one can perceive a mind behind that the way in which it's, the rules in which make it up, these rules which were, I don't want to say the term designed. I haven't proven that these rules are designed yet. I'm definitely...
John, sorry. I'm stuck on John. Sorry, I was stuck on the last caller's name. John. So I feel like what you're essentially arguing here is that from a very you're just presuming that God, presuppositionalism. You're just presupposing that God is necessary for this system. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of your explanation here is that the physics that govern a block scooting across a wood floor needs to have a mind behind it. That's what I'm getting out of it, right?
No, definitely not. Not the way you're explaining it. In the sense that I actually perceive an intelligence behind it. I can tell you that I know.
Can I see if I caught what you're saying? Okay, so this is my best ability to parse what you're saying here is that to have complex rules, you believe that there is required to be some conscious being that had to create rules instead of it being just a scientific, mass, items. They exist without like the wall being involved with, It sounds like a huge jump, right? Like, where are you coming up with it from? Why would I can't parse the jump, but I do think what you're saying is like, you think because there are rules that we can see that you can't imagine it being without conscious being involved. Is that correct?
Well, not quite, but I can understand why you came to that supposition. Well, what I'm saying is, and I know I'm not saying perfectly, I'm not saying with complete knowledge yet. It's like Amar said, Amar, he's always the atheist, he's one of my favorite people to listen to. He says, if you don't know it, if you can't show it, you don't know it. And I see why he says that. I can say I know God exists, but I can't completely show it yet. So I'm working on the arguments, I'm doing the studies in physics, I'm doing the studies in physics and math and different things to show that God exists. It's possible for a proof. I would pray to God I can find it and demonstrate it. But as I'm working this argument process, what I'm saying is that the rules, the way in which it's set up, the simplicity, when we see a mind, we see a mind, and I do admit the only example I have is of human design systems, but when we see something designed by an intelligence, there's certain simplicities, there's certain rules, there's certain rational ways in which it works together, there's certain ways we built on reason, there's certain patterns, there's certain ways it all comes together harmoniously and with a certain wisdom and balance that you can perceive there's a mind behind its creation. If you meditate on the wisdom of the natural world and the ways in which the rationality and the rules are set up to work efficiently and simply, the rules are really simple at the end of the day. The physics rules are really simple. It's that they get complex in how they work together. But it's like divine. I don't think it's divine and simple.
If I can interrupt, like, I don't find them to be all that simple. Like, anybody that's taken a physics, physics 2 maybe, and have tried to figure out those static state diagrams where you're figuring out like, oh, this force is pushing this much on it, this force is doing this force is doing that. Even in your very basic example of a cube being pushed across a wooden floor, that is a very complex set of calculations there, and all of them have very natural explanations as to why those things are needed. Like, there's a certain amount of force that the floor exerts on the cube, and then there's the amount of friction. Like you pointed out all of these things, but what I'm not hearing is where God is necessary for this. Because, like, if we want to move away from this particular example and think, for me, it's easier to think of the rain cycle. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
Well, also, it kind of sounds like maybe he's ascribing to like deism or the clock starter or something, because if they're right, like that's what it seems like maybe the argument is like, oh, what is it? Is that what the analogy is for the deism? Is the clock, here's all the rules, pow, shot it out there or whatever. Isn't that?
Yeah. I would say it can be described to deism. I'm not necessarily even advocating for a Christian God. I'm just advocating for an intelligent, rational mind who set the rules in motion and clearly designed the universe with a wisdom. If the universe is meditated upon and the rules deeply studied, there's a, for lack of a better word, divine wisdom behind it. There's a wisdom to nature. It's not just nature. Like, a lot of people just say, okay, it's just nature. These rules, they don't see a God in that sense, like, a being actually waving his hand or doing some type of, as you would call it, describe some magic.
Right. John, how are we defining wisdom here? Because I feel like maybe I have a different concept of wisdom than you do.
That's true. I'm defining wisdom as okay, and I admit, the whole time I'm studying philosophy, it's very difficult to define wisdom, so I would try. Forgive me, because it's probably going to be a poor definition, but I'm going to try to give you my definition of wisdom. I would say wisdom is something that's intelligently, by intelligent, I mean simply efficient and very pervasive in its benefit and, if you will, impact. That's sort of the best definition I can give. Like, the wisdom of the block is that there are four simple forces of the block working in balance. And another thing, since the universe also shows balance, it's also, I would say, properties of the mind. Anything that's I would say, balanced. Anything that has like a mathematical balance to it, that's not, I would say, a random thing. That's something that has to be created, I would say. But I don't have an argument to show that 100% yet, but I would say that's another thing I want to get to. Like, if something is balanced, like, it shows balance. Like, there are equal and opposite forces, there are balances. But I admit I don't have a full argument for you.
I don't, John, I don't know how that is exactly related to wisdom. I mean, the simplicity that we find in like mathematics and physics and everything like that, like people have crafted those particular descriptions of reality to be able to explain reality. So, I mean, if they're intelligible, if they're rational, it's because we have crafted them to be so. Right. Like, I understand that you're talking about the underlying physics of things, but I still have yet to see any kind of good argument for why God is necessary for those things. But we do have other calls to get to. And so I really appreciate you calling in there, John. Maybe next time, if I can just give a little bit of constructive criticism here, maybe come up with like a syllogism or maybe just a few points that you can hit on instead of, because I know that we didn't get to your full argument here, but I tried to give you as much leeway as I could. And I feel like there was just, it was just taking a long time to get to the end. I do appreciate you calling in. Yeah.
I have a question before you go. Yeah, I appreciate your time. What would you rate the argument so far? I know it's not too well, but what would you rate it from 1 to 10? I was going to see what I'm doing, where I can improve. Give me a number if you can.
Like 1 being Pascal's wager and 10 being some magical argument that doesn't exist yet?
Yes, so be it.
A 2 for me.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca?
All right.
Like I said, I think that this is a deism question. I think that reading about deism would be very helpful. I would say that, yeah, you're correct that it's probably closer to Pascal's wager because we're talking about deism. And so, go read about deism and then call back, right?
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Have a nice night.
Yeah, thank you, John. I hope you call in again. What's up, Heathen? Thank you so much for checking out this clip from The Line. If you enjoyed this clip today, you can get more of it by subscribing to The Line. So hit up those links in the description. So hit up those links in the description so you can catch me the next time I host Skep Talk. I don't know, was that 20 seconds? Here's some filler shit for, to fill out the 20 seconds. I don't know. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy.